about books. Specifically the books that I would recommend to read this Christmas/winter, and also let's talk about some of the books on my TBR. First, as for books that I have read and that I recommend, I'm just going to get these two out of the way because you knew they were coming. You need to be reading the Harry Potter books and the Throne of Glass books in the winter. Honestly, you have no business reading anything else if you haven't started these. I did recommend starting these in fall because I know some people are like, oh, those are really big series. I'm not a big reader. Well, that's why you should have started these earlier, but it's okay. It's never too late to start. Now let's talk about another book that I read this year, which is The Midnight Library. I don't know if this book necessarily takes place in the winter, but there are some scenes in the book that were very memorable to me that do take place in the winter. This book does have some trigger warnings for suicide. It is actually about a woman who, at the very beginning of the book, has just decided that she is better off leaving this world, and so she attempts to commit suicide, and in doing so she ends up getting stuck in this kind of in-between place called The Midnight Library. It sounds like it would be a very sad and depressing book, and in some ways it is very like real and deep. What she learns at the Midnight Library and what she goes through is such a beautifully put life lesson. Then on to the Caravel Trilogy. And now listen, I know some of you are going to be like, oh, don't those books take place in summer? Yes, but realistically, these books are so winter coded to me. So yes, you could read the Caravel books in the summer, but I also think they could be read in the winter. Something about reading this book in a big sweater next to a fire is just ideal. Kind of continuing on with the whole circus vibe of things, The Night Circus. This book, I will say, is, I wouldn't say it's slow, but it's definitely not for new readers if you're not really into books and reading, because it's not slow, it's just very detailed and it has a lot of symbolism and things that you could really enjoy. But if you're more into like the fast-paced, fluffier books, this might not be for you. If that's the case, then Caravel is your circus book. This is extremely fast-paced, very entertaining, and this one is just deep, detailed, and it's about basically two magicians who have some serious beef about who's the best magician out there. And mind you, this is a very like gross paraphrasing of what this book is about. Just bear with me, I'm pitching a book here. These two magicians are trying to argue like who's the best magician, and they can never really beat each other. They're always like coming out at the same level. So they come down to the conclusion that what's going to make or break which one's the best magician is who is the better teacher. So they both take on an apprentice to teach them magic, and those two are going to compete to see who had the best teacher. Hello. Moving on to a Christmas classic, which is the Nutcracker. I actually read this one last Christmas, and let's just say that it's nothing like Barbie's Nutcracker, and I don't know why I expected it to be. I think that's just because that was my only exposure to the Nutcracker before, so that was a little embarrassing to admit as a 23-year-old woman. But it's very short and a very good read if you're into the classics. Speaking of classics, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You might not need to read the whole series, but definitely at least read Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, because obviously you've seen the movie, you know it's good, you know it takes place in the winter, you have all those cozy nostalgic vibes with it. Just read the book. It's also a shorter book and it's made for younger readers, so if you're looking for a light, fun, quick read, that's a good one for you. Then, of course, and I will get into this in my TBR list, but I am trying to read more non-fiction books. The number one book that I would recommend that I read this time last year that I still refer back to often is Atomic Habits. You've most likely heard about this one if you're into reading like self-help books and self-improvement books. This is by far one of the best ones that I have ever read and the most helpful. I've actually taken a lot of stuff that I learned from this book and I still use it today. Now, as for my TBR, I tried to include a little bit of everything. I don't think I will actually get to every single one of these books, but these are the books that I want to read. For the 3 Christmas books that I want to read that have been recommended to me that I really want to get my hands on this year: The Christmas Guest, which is a Christmassy murder mystery; All I Want for Christmas, which is a fake dating book. From what I've heard, it sounds like it's 2 contestants of a singing competition, kind of like The Voice or American Idol, and they get paired together to sing duets as part of this competition. In order to like leverage getting good votes, they start like this fake dating thing. something. This is like a publicity stunt kind of idea, and it sounds really cute. I'm not very into contemporary romances, but I want to. I just need to read a little bit more to find out what I like and what I don't. So I'm excited to read that one. Then One Day in December, which takes place in London around Christmas time. It's a girl who's like in London and she sees a boy, and it's kind of like love at first sight. For whatever reason, she didn't get his name, she didn't get his contacts, whatever, and she spends like a year trying to find this guy. I've watched a couple movies with that kind of plot and I always usually like it, so I'm interested to see how that will translate in a book. Now I have 3 nonfiction books that I really want to read this year, preferably before the new year or going into the new year. Eliminate Negative Thinking. It's always been a goal of mine to try to be more positive, so that book will hopefully be very helpful. Then The Mountain Is You, which is all about basically you're your own worst enemy, and once you kind of get over that hump, you can accomplish a lot more than you think you could. And then The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control. I feel like in almost every single TBR I've mentioned this book. I actually am on hold for the ebook at my local library, so I should have my hands on this one hopefully in the next couple weeks. And then of course the book that I'm absolutely reading that is scheduled to come in the mail the day it comes out, House of Flame and Shadow. I am so excited. And another reason why I don't know if I'm going to hit everything in my TBR is I'm currently rereading every single Sarah J Maas book. I am currently over halfway done with Throne of Glass books. I have to read all the ACOTAR books, and my goal is to reread both the Crescent City books before the 3rd one comes out. Don't know how possible that is. I think I have to be averaging like over 100 pages of Sarah J Maas books a day. We'll see if that happens. Thankfully, all of the books that I want to read that are on my TBR are smaller, so who knows? Maybe I'll like totally crank all these books out. But those are all of my wintry book recommendations as well as my current TBR. Let me know if I should add anything else to my TBR, or if you have some opinions about some of the books I recommended. I'd love to hear those as well. For now, you can check out my Vlogmas playlist, or you can check out some of my other reading challenges, considering I might be doing some reading challenges this month to get through this TBR list.